Hello and welcome to Anatomy of Us, a show dedicated to bringing real help to real couples. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
What's up, guys? My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and together we are high-performance marriage coaches.
We are cutting through the bullcrap and creating a movement of happy, healthy, badass couples all over the world.
Let's go!
Hey guys, welcome to Anatomy of Us. I'm doing a solo episode today all about my breast implant and explant journey, what it looks like, all the questions that you might have for it. And I want to do this one alone. I'm going to go into detail about like the type of implants I had, the type of surgery I had, and Seth gets squeamish around stuff like that. So I didn't want to torture him and make him have to listen to all the details that he does not want to know about. So I'm recording this episode by my lonesome. And again, if you're new here, my name is Melanie Studley. I'm the creator and host of the Anatomy of Us podcast. We talk about real help for real couples. And this implant explant journey is something that has been, if you've followed us, you may know that I had implants. You might not. We don't talk about it that often. But as I was walking through this journey on my own, I was like, dang, I wish I had a resource that was better than what I could find online. So I'm making it as per the usual. But welcome. Okay, so first off, I want to talk about why I got implants in the first place. So this was 10 years ago. I was, 28, 29. I had just had, I think our Hattie, our 11-year-old kid now was 1. And I had breastfed 3 kids, and I am a very thin-skinned person. So I'm like super, if you're not watching the podcast, I'm super white, very Irish, very pale. I'm a redhead, and my skin is really, really thin. And so after nursing 3 babies, also, this is a graphic episode. I'm going to talk about tons of stuff. So be warned. If you're a queasy type of person, you might want to not listen to this while you're driving or whatever. But so I had given birth to 3 kids, nursed 3 kids. And after that, I just had saggy ones, like they were saggy. I've got thin skin. I do not have tough, nice bounce back skin. I just don't. And I did not feel delightful joy about my breasts. I didn't hate them, but I also was like, well, this is a bummer, just like saggy, empty pockets. And I always had wanted to, I'm a fairly small person, right? My frame is small. I don't weigh very much. I'm thin. I'm muscular. And I had always wished that I had been more curvy as a kid. I also had like very curvy friends just by happenstance. And so I was like, oh man, I'm so jealous of them. They can have cleavage. I had never been able to have cleavage my entire life. And so I was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll get an implants and I'll have cleavage and it'll be so cool. That's what I thought. And so Seth and I talked about it. And I want to start out by saying he did not pressure me. He did not suggest it. We're going to interview him later in a different episode. But I just want to say, like, right out of the gate, it wasn't his idea. It was mine. I did not feel any pressure from Seth whatsoever. So just factor that into everything that you hear right now. But went in, had a consultation with a person out here. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about, like, okay, if you're listening to this, you're probably either considering getting implants or explanting or something. You probably are inquisitive and found this for a reason. And so right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you what I wish that the surgeon had told me at the first place that I went to, and sort of like what I wish I had known. So at this first guy's appointment, I mean, he was a nice dude, got high ratings with all the doctor scores or whatever you look up, good reviews on his website. But what I didn't know about this particular person and their particular practice is that they weren't, I don't know how to say it, but it was like kind of more of a just like get them in, get them out type of thing. Like not a lot of, hey, shape, type of implant, placement of implant, like, is it proportionate to your body size? All of that stuff, like none of that was talked about. And I felt super, super rushed. And I remember even saying that I wanted to get implants and I wanted them to be really small because I'm a small person. The nurses were like, oh no, you'll regret that. Actually, most women wish they had gone bigger. So I was like, oh, and then Seth actually did say, oh, you should get bigger. And I just was like, oh, I guess they're right. I guess I would regret having them be smaller. I should go bigger. And I remember so vividly just being like, feeling really conflicted and feeling very like guideless. Not that they, I shouldn't have looked at them to guide me in that, but I did. And so I went into that first appointment, was talked into a bigger size than I wanted, but again, was told, well, you'll be so full of regret if you go smaller. And so I was like, okay, whatever. The other thing that I wish that I explained more of that I didn't know that I think is more general knowledge now is that implants are only like a 10-year thing. You're supposed to have them taken out even if nothing is wrong with them, like every 10 years. I didn't know that. They don't language it like that. So they'll say something like, this is not a lifelong medical device, I think is the language that is in your paperwork. And you're like, what was lifelong medical device mean anyway? I don't even know what that means. So thanks for the info, but I don't know what that info means, right? I did not do my due diligence to explore what that meant, to clarify what that meant. And what it means is that no matter if your implants are perfect and they never rupture, you're supposed to go have them replaced every 10 years. That's a lot of expense. That's a lot of pain. Why would we do that? Right. And I just didn't know it. I didn't feel confident. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what a medical device meant. Like, I don't know. So that was something else that I wish I had known at that initial appointment. Like, I wish that there had been someone saying, hey, proportion to your body, you're a small frame, you should have smaller implants. I wish they had also said, hey, just so that you know, when you're 38, you'll be back in here and I'll be cutting you up again. Sound good? Because I might have been like, oh, wait, maybe not. So those are sort of the beginning experiences of this whole journey. And then I want to talk also about like the surgery itself, like how the implant surgery was. So again, I'm skinny. My boobs naturally are small. I'm thin-skinned and I got implants. I got subglandular saline implants. They were just round. They were not teardrop shape or anything like that. So these round saline subglandular, meaning it was underneath the glands, the mammary glands, and not underneath the muscle. So there's two different places. Maybe there's, I think maybe 2 to 3-ish types of locations that you can do it. But mine was subglandular saline round implants. And that was a really hard surgery because, again, I'm small and they're stretching all of the skin over these big round implants. And then you're like all bandaged up and everything just feels tight and awful. And I bruised a ton. I mean, I can't even imagine, like you're separating, again, graphic. So if you're queasy, if you faint easily, if you don't like this stuff, fast forward it or something. But they're creating a pocket. They're cutting away, like, I think it's like layers of fascia. Like like when you cut up a chicken, there's that like silver skin. I think Seth calls it silver skin. That's fascia, and it holds the different muscles and parts of your body together. So fascia holds you all together. If your fascia is messed up, your body doesn't hold itself together. So they're creating a pocket to put this saline implant in. So they're just cutting for lack of a better word and very unscientifically, cutting like a big hole in you to shove this huge round implant in. And then stretching your skin over it, right? So it was a lot. It was tight feeling. It was really, my breasts protruded really far forward because of the shape that they were. And they were really round, like wide for my body. So imagine if you took like, this is going to sound silly, but like 2 grapefruits and just held them up to like a man's chest. That's how I always felt. Because I have such thin skin, you could always kind of see, like you could tell that they were fake. There was no getting around it. And the only reason that I went subglandular was I was like, submuscular sounds like it hurts. Legitimately was my reason for going subglandular. So whatever, might be all my fault that they didn't look natural, but I was like, submuscular, no thanks. Subglandular, and so I always had what felt like grapefruits for boobs, sitting on the front of like a man's body. Like I think I'm basically built like my 15-year-old son, like, just really athletic, slight build. And then you just like put these 2 big old herkin boobs. Again, they weren't like giant either, but for my body, they were too big. So healing from that was not fun. And immediately, what I felt about them was like, man, this is, okay, 2 things. I didn't feel sexy in a beautiful way. I felt sexy in a garish way, like inappropriately sexy. It felt like I was a floozy, and I am not a floozy. And that was shocking to me. I thought that I was going to feel really like embodied, like, oh, I feel sassy. I don't know what I thought. I just thought I would feel really like a real lady. I don't know. And I didn't. I actually felt really insecure. because again, I never even could have cleavage before. I have like the Tori, what is her name? Tori Spalding's, whatever, boobs that like point two different directions. So I like, my boobs don't like each other. I always say they are mad at each other or something. And so I never could have cleavage anyway. So then when I had the ability to have cleavage, I was like, oh no, thank you. Like, no. Like number one, it's not comfortable. Like you have to have a thing, like a contraption going with your boobs. No, thanks. I'm not here for that. But also I would just get stared at all the time. And I don't know if it's a thing because I'm a redhead. I don't know if I'm prettier than I realized. I don't know, but I did not appreciate the amount of attention I got from people, men specifically, around my body. And I did not think that was going to happen. So I kind of wish that someone would have talked about that I wasn't very showy with my skin before, and then getting implants and thinking, oh, this will make me feel more comfortable in my body. So I won't be as uncomfortable about it. I was completely wrong. I was way more uncomfortable. All of a sudden I had something to actually hide. Whereas before I was like, whatever, nothing there, like padded bra all day long. But now I actually had like something to hide, and I felt awkward about it. I didn't love how it looked. I don't think it looked bad, but I think it felt garish. It felt inappropriate. Which was really challenging because like this is going to sound unrelated, but like I love swimming. I love swimsuits. I love bathing suits and bikinis. But all of a sudden it became like, whoa, bikini lady. Like it felt like so much. Again, I think I don't think most people think this way. This is just me. I'm a prude. But I just wish someone had talked about that, I guess. So having implants is not the worst thing. I don't regret it at all, actually. And if my implant hadn't ruptured, I wouldn't have taken them out, partially because I didn't know you're supposed to every 10 years. But having them, there was a couple things that I wish I had been told ahead of time, because I think these are fairly common things across the board of people I meet who have explanted. They will talk about these things, but they're not things you hear about much before you get an implant, I guess. And one of the things was that I always, every single time I hugged someone for the last 10 years, I would be very self-conscious of my boobs because they felt too big for my body. And when you would hug someone, it felt literally like you were pushing two giant sandwich bags full of water against your chest. It felt awful. Like it felt like having literally sandwich snack bags full of saline just in your bra all the time, just pushing against everything. So if somebody touched it, if they hugged you, I always was like, oh my gosh, they can tell, this is so embarrassing. And then it would be worse if you had like a strong hugger for like a friend or an in-law or whatever. Light hugs, side hugs, no big deal. But if you had like a strong hugger, I was like, oh, they can tell, like this is so awkward. What does it feel like to them? And that was something that I hated that I had to think about it. It's, but no big deal. Like seriously, not a big first world problems all day long, but also I didn't like it. The other thing too is that, and we're going to do a whole episode about intimacy because I want to get Seth's perspective on this. I think a lot of people are curious about this. Husbands and wives are curious about how implants affect intimacy. Is it all good? Is it all bad? Is it neither? Is it whatever? And I want to do an episode about that. But another thing too was that it changed intimacy. It changed it. And I'll leave it at that because you got to listen to the episode where we talk about that. But I will say that it was not exactly what I expected. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why it wasn't what I expected when we get into the explant part, because my doctor, my explant doctor, told me something ridiculous about my implants. Something had been done incorrectly with my implants, but I'll get to that in a minute. So I guess, did I like them? That's a good question to answer. Did I like even having implants? Yes and no. I did like, with certain outfits, I thought I looked really beautiful, like very, very what's the, like wine glass? Is that what they say? No, hourglass, wine glass. Oh my gosh. Hourglassy. Like I could look like hourglassy, and I was like, oh, that's so fun. Like that's beautiful. Again, I was always way covering everything. There's never cleavage, never any of that stuff. But I could be that beautiful lady-like hourglass shape that I wanted, and I really liked that. That was cool. Also, I think too, because I had fake boobs, I could fill stuff out, like a dress that was cut to be hourglass. I could fill it out. And that was kind of cool. Before I was like 8 layers of pads, like your bra is stuffed to the gills, but it felt kind of cool. But also I didn't love that they just felt like these big fake not bottles of water, like a bag of water, like a water balloon. It literally like stick a water balloon in a bra and walk around and it feels exactly like that. Other things that they really messed up other things that my implants did that bothered me was exercise and play. So I had them for a decade. That's a really long time, right? So I traveled the world in them. I've done lots of stuff, gone swimming, gone surfing, did Pilates, all the things, riding bikes, doing things. And they made me feel like I couldn't do sports fully. Like laying on your stomach when you have implants. Again, I'm really skinny, so I don't know that this is equal across the board. I don't know if like the rest of your body is a little bit bigger, if it guards it a little bit more, but for me, it felt awful. It felt so gross to lay on my stomach, like laying flat on my stomach in Pilates or on a surfboard or even boogie boarding or on the beach. It just felt like I was going to pop these 2 giant water balloons that my chest was resting on. And it literally felt so gross because your skin is like pulled tight over them. And then you're leaning all your weight on them and you're like, this can't be right. Like this is not going to be good. This is not going to end well. And then also they're heavy. They were so heavy and they are smaller than most people's implants. Just again, I'm going to say that. But also they were really big for my body size. And so things like jogging, jumping, your boobs would just gross, like sandwich Ziploc bags of water jostling. And you can literally hear the saline inside of my boob. You could hear it like this. If you're not watching, I just shook my water bottle, but I'm not kidding. It sounded like this. Inside of my body. You could hear the saline shaking around in my implants. And it was so gross and it felt so weird, but I think it made exercising so uncomfortable. So like jogging just was obviously unpleasant. You'd have to like the most sports bra ever. And sometimes I would even sports bra and then like ace bandage so that stuff wasn't moving so much. But I really couldn't. I mean, again, I'm small, the implants were too big, so I couldn't stop them as much as I wanted. The other thing too that I didn't like about them in terms of physical fitness and activity was that I love yoga. I love being really flexible, like flexibility and yin yoga are some of my favorite things to participate in. And I could no longer, when you do the stretch where you put your leg out forward and then you bend over it, my boobs literally got in the way. Again, I'm very flexible. So that was one of the most disappointing things I discovered ever. I was like, I cannot believe my yoga practice is limited to the fake Ziploc bag full of saline in my chest wall. Like this is so dumb. Also, like I love to sit, like if I'm sitting on the ground, I like to pull my knees up to my chest and like hug my legs. I just love moving my body a lot. And I couldn't do that. Like I could only go so far and then they'd hit my boobs. My knees would hit my boobs. And I was like, well, this is dumb. Like this is the dumbest thing that dumb can be. Because I want to be able to extend my body to its full ability and I just couldn't. The other weird thing that I discovered too was that if you're stretching in the morning and you're putting your arms backwards, right? You're kind of yawn, like the big cartoon yawn, right? Or like a Seinfeld yawn. Seth will like that one. But you put your arms up and kind of back behind you a little bit. I couldn't do that for years. I mean, I could do it, but it was all, I didn't realize it was all restricted. That motion was really restricted. And I just thought, man, I'm so tight. Like, why is my front, almost like my chest, what is that called? Your sternum? Like, why is my sternum so tight all the time? And I would stretch that way and it just felt like everything was stuck. Like it was so hard to stretch back. And then I got them removed and I stretched like that one day and I was like, oh, that's why. Like my body, I don't know if it was like the skin literally couldn't stretch any farther, which is so gross to think. I kind of think that that's all it was. But like the release that I've experienced in the front, like where your collarbone is and your sternum and your shoulders, like that has all opened up so much just in the 7 to 8, I think I'm post like 9 days post surgery, maybe. Like all of a sudden I feel like I can open my chest up so much better. And I hated how it felt when I had the implants in. Also, I think it made me hunch forward more. Number one, because I think I was trying to minimize the size of my boobs. I just felt really uncomfortable. So I was like hunching forward to make them disappear a little bit. But then also I think that created a lot of tension in my neck and shoulders. So it made everything worse, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it makes sense. So that was some of the stuff that I didn't like about having implants. Again, like they just always felt so fake inside of my body. The way that I could experience it from internally, it just felt weird, wrong, fake, and not great. But from like a visual perspective, they looked really great. Like they looked nice and I didn't hate them. And again, I hid them mostly, but I don't know. I have a list of things that I'm reading off of here. So why did I wanted to tell you the story about how why I explanted. Like, why did I even explant? So I'll tell you a little story. So I discovered that I had a ruptured implant the morning I was putting on my velvet jacket, a velvet blazer, black blazer, to go MC my brother's funeral. I was called by my parents to be like the MC of his memorial service. And so I was getting ready. Obviously, that's a really challenging time. My brother passed away just a few weeks before, not even maybe a week before, very unexpectedly. It was very, very tragic. And I was buttoning up my coat to get ready to go. And I was like, what is that? Why is my, like one side of my chest is like flatter? What is happening? And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, that doesn't seem right, but I have to go. I've got to go do this thing, this awful thing. I got to get my kids ready. I got to go, walk through this whole thing with my family and my parents and blah. And then, go do the memorial service, do all the things, come back. And I'm like, wait, I actually think that I have a leak in one of my breasts. My left implant is like ruptured. And so I didn't know what to do. Right. I was obviously grief stricken by the scenario that was going on in my family, completely apart from the rupture. But then on top of all of that, having to make sense of like, well, what do I do now? Like, what's the next step? What can you fix it? Can you just like, what do you do? And so I was like, it's not that bad. Like it hasn't leaked that much. And I can just sort of like pad this side and then it looks like they're balanced. And that worked for a while until, listen to this. My daughter, Hattie, it's going to sound unrelated, but it's not. Hattie is a super, like when she hugs you, she squeezes the daylights out of you. She's that kid. And she hugged me one day so hard that she like flattened my left breast. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I even do? Like, how do I make sense of this? And so I had a flat breast on one side. And right about the same time, although I did not make this connection until about a year later, I went to Pilates, which I did Pilates every day for almost a year. I did Pilates. I love Pilates. Went to Pilates again, remind you, my brother had just died. I had just done his service. It was now Christmas time. He died right before Christmas. All these compounding things. And I went to Pilates and I was so good at Pilates, you guys. Like the teacher would always use me as the like, watch what Melanie does. She's doing it all right. Look at how strong she is, right? I'm really muscular, really strong. And get in Pilates and I can't do anything. I was like seeing stars, literal stars, like cartoon stars. I would lay on the thing and I'd get super dizzy. I would try to do anything remotely strenuous, like easy strenuous, and I would see stars and I would start to get like I don't know if I sweat, but I would get like I was going to barf, right? And the other thing too is we all had gotten COVID. So like we had gotten COVID, we had gotten COVID right after my brother, I think it was at Christmas. So my brother dies, we do his service, Christmas rolls around, it was so hard. And then COVID hits us, like we all got COVID. And then trying to do Pilates, I just can't do Pilates. And so here I am thinking it's COVID. Like, it's got to be COVID. But I had it before. I had COVID before and I didn't do the same thing to me. So I was like, what is happening? But I didn't line up any dots, didn't make any connections. I just said, hey, I have to pause my account. I have to stop coming for a while because I basically almost pass out every time I went to Pilates. And it was really, really weird. Like I would have to leave the class. Like I'd have to go sit outside in the cold weather to like stop feeling like I was dying during class. And I'm like, this is number one, it's a waste of my money and time. I can't even do it. So I'm just going to pause everything and stop. Then I tried to go like a couple weeks after and a couple weeks after that. And I just still couldn't do it. So I ended up canceling my Pilates like subscription entirely, which was a huge thing because I literally went there almost every single day for a year. And that was like my community, the way that I was healthy and all of those things. It was a huge deal to me. So that was really hard. But again, I wasn't making any connections. I was just like, gosh, I'm so sick. Like what's happening? But from the outside, I didn't look sick. I didn't seem sick. I wasn't coughing. I wasn't, I just didn't seem all that sick, but I couldn't really do any real exercise. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just push pause on that. I don't know. I'll start it back up and whenever I feel fine. That never happened. The whenever I feel fine never rolled around. And then, so again, like I've stopped doing Pilates. I feel like weird, low level gross, not necessarily sick all the time, but just gross. And so this is where I'm going to share a lot of the symptoms that I had because I truly do think that I had breast implant illness from the rupture, not just the implants. Because before, when my implant was not ruptured, I did 75 hard. I did Pilates every day for a year. I wasn't sick. I was not being impacted by anything when my implant was intact. And so this is where it gets weird. This is where it starts to get outside of the realm of what people are usually talking about around breast implant illness, because some people get sick right away when they get implants. That was not me. So I started having all these weird symptoms. Again, I did not connect the dots. I did not understand what was happening. I didn't think it had anything to do with my implants. In fact, I thought it was like stress from my brother's death and like long COVID or something. I just thought it was all these other things. It couldn't have been my implants, right? So here are some of the symptoms that I had, which is amazing because some of them are already going away and or gone in the 9 days since I've gotten my implants out. So one of the weirder symptoms that I had was that when I would get into a bathtub of water, my legs would tingle. Again, this is only after my implant ruptured, but it felt like pins and needles in my like feet and my legs. Never, ever, ever had it before. Never had that before. And it only started after my implant ruptured. The other thing is the brain fog and what is the word? I'm missing the word. Funny. But there's brain fog and then there's like being tired all the time. Exhaustion. I was so freaking tired every single day for like an hour and a half. This was not your normal like 3 o'clock. I need a cookie to get me right back up. This was like hours of being like, just felt like, I'm going to swear, okay, but like drag ass. Like you're just like, I can't even do anything. It's the feeling that you have like when you have a cold and you're like super knocked down that like it's hard to even walk across your bedroom. That's how it felt, but I didn't have a cold. I wasn't sick. There should be nothing wrong with me. I'm eating healthy. I'm like, what is going on? And I just felt like an absolute slug on a slug. It was the worst. And that is already going away. Like I haven't even, and I'll tell you about my explant journey more, like the healing from that and what that's looked like. Cause there's been a little tweak in my journey that most people hopefully won't have, but, that is already gone. That like weird brain fog feeling of like where you're sitting there and all of a sudden you realize you're just like staring at nothing and you're like, well, how long have I been doing that? Right. I haven't had that since I've explanted, minus the caveat I'm going to tell you. So, the other symptoms that I had, like I'm saying, the brain fog going away was such a big deal because I honestly felt like I was going insane. I felt like I was losing my mind. And that is probably one of the most important and significant sort of changes that I've already begun to feel that feels amazing. But one of the weirdest symptoms that I had that I had never heard anybody talk about, except I met a lady in the mastermind that I'm a part of, the Live Out Loud Mastermind. It's hosted by Brooke Thomas. It's amazing. And I met a lady. Her handle is Lisa Lou on Instagram, Lisa Lou Fitness, I think. And she was telling me that she had implants and it felt like she had concrete in her lower legs. And I had never heard anybody describe it like that. But that is exactly how I felt. Like from like my knees to my ankles felt like someone had injected it with like slime or goo or sludge. And it felt, I mean, which that sounds so gross. And what does that even mean? But it felt stagnant in my lower legs that anything from like dancing, running, jumping, being, exercising, it felt impossible because it felt like my legs were like lead weights. And I had never experienced that before. I didn't know what to make of it because I had, again, never, ever, ever experienced that before. But, only I think probably 3 days after surgery, that was completely gone. That feeling was gone, which was a godsend because that was one of the main reasons that I didn't exercise ever, was that this like sluggish, just exhausted feeling mixed with feeling like your legs weighed 9 million pounds was like, I can't even do this. The other thing too, which I don't know if this is, sorry, I'm hot. I'm taking my coat off. The other thing too, that I've never heard anybody talk about I'd be curious to know if you have this experience. My, when you exercise and you have, I think it's like, lactic acid or something makes your muscles burn. I don't know if that's right, but my muscles would burn like walking up my staircase. And I'm not super out of shape. I'm not heavy. I'm not like, I don't know any of the other things that would make that happen, but my muscles would burn like in minutes. And I mean like in a minute of doing anything remotely exercise oriented, my muscles would burn. And I'm like, this has never happened to me before. Like I said, I've done 75 hard. I used to jog for 45 minutes straight at the church that Seth and I run at. Like I could work out. I'm strong. And my muscles were just burning every time I would do anything even mildly related to working out. And that sucked. So if you have had that experience as well, I want you to tell me because I've never heard anybody talk about the muscle burning, like immediate muscle fatigue thing. So if you've experienced that, tell me because I want to know that I'm not alone. Let's see. I want to see if there's any other things. Okay. So now, sorry, I'm reading my own notes, talking to myself. Normally I have my husband to chat to, but he's not here. So, I want to talk a little bit about breast implant illness and what I learned from my surgeon because he had a very interesting take on it. So my surgeon was Dr. Hutter out in Renton, Washington. He is like, I think he teaches reconstructive surgery at UW. He's a reconstructive surgeon. I'm going to say all these things incorrectly because I don't know the real word, but so if someone had cancer and had to have a mastectomy, he will do the reconstructive surgery. So he's just brilliant, like top notch, right? And so when I first went in and talked to him, I said, I kind of think that I'm experiencing breast implant illness, like BII symptoms. And he was like, listen, I want to talk about this because people are getting this stuff mixed up and we need to have a little bit of clarification. And this was a while ago. This was like almost a year ago. He was like, if we were talking about breast implant illness, but we're not, if we're only demonizing implants and we're not saying that they're ever okay, and we're only making them all bad, that's not really helpful for people. And he said one of the worst things that happened, and again, now I'm gonna communicate this because like I've been saying, I think I had experienced breast implant illness symptoms, which is essentially just your body trying to fight a toxin. It's not, that's what it is, right? It's your body trying to get rid of a thing that it doesn't want inside of you. So it creates inflammation all the time. And the inflammation causes problems. So that's what I'm talking about. But one of the things that he got kind of not triggered, but I said, yeah, I think I want to do I think it's called en bloc or on blocks removal, like a capsulectomy, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, okay, I'm going to stop you right now. And I'm going to teach you something because he's like, that terminology, I think it's en bloc. I don't know how you say it. I think it's a French word. But in the breast implant illness community, they talk about this idea of an en bloc capsulectomy. The capsule is the thing that your body actually grows around your implant. So it creates like a full scar, essentially, makes a full scar, a capsule around the implant. Everybody's body does it. And he's like, when people say en bloc capsulectomy, he's like, they're using in like an oncology, like a cancer term. He's like an en bloc remove, like again, butchering the language, forgive me. But he's like, that terminology is referring to when you remove like a tumor and breast tissue, you're taking out the tissue and then you're taking out tissue around the tissue that was touching the bad stuff so that you cut out the things that could potentially grow more tumors if you don't cut it out, right? So it's like taking out extra That's the end block part is you're taking out extra so that the tumor doesn't continue to grow or the cancer doesn't continue to spread. He's like, it has nothing, zilch, zero, nothing, zilch, nada, whatever, to do with an explant surgery. He's like, they've taken this word that has nothing to do with explanting and made it about explanting. And then people get super passionate and then they go to their surgeon and they think they know everything. And he's like, and it's really confusing. And the surgeons are just kind of like, I don't know, like that's not even a term, but here we go. Hold on, I gotta take a drink. So he was saying the end block part is a cancer / oncology term. And he's like, I really just wish people would stop using it because it's not even correct. The other thing that he said is that, especially in my case, again, I'm going to remind you, I had a subglandular, which I think is also called postmuscular. So my implant was behind the mammary glands and in front of the chest muscle, right? The pectoral muscle. So he said if you do a complete capsulectomy, which a capsulectomy is when you remove that scar that your body makes around your implant. So let me remind you, the scar is attached to your actual body. So it's not just floating around in there, it's actually attached. And he told me, he's like, if I were to remove every piece of scar tissue, which is what people request all the time, they'll say, I requested it. That's why I know this. I said, I want a full capsulectomy, end block capsulectomy. And he said, okay, let me tell you why I don't think that's a good fit for you. He was like, I will have to be cutting away this, think you're literally cutting the inside of your body. You're cutting away this scar tissue. He's like, I will be cutting it away and then trying to fuse these parts of your body back together. And he's like, I can actually use a portion of that capsule to be like a fusing agent. I will score it, again, loads of TMI. If you are queasy, don't listen. But he's like, what did he say? He was going to score it kind of like with a cauterizing thing and make like hatch marks on both sides of my capsules, the remaining capsule pieces in there, so that they could heal together. That otherwise you don't have anything to heal and you'll end up with pockets where nothing is connected, right? He also said taking out the full capsule can really, he's like, you're scraping it off of bones sometimes. If you have the submuscular kind, it can fuse to like your rib cage. He's like, and if you don't need to do that, why on earth would you tear all of that out and cut all that up and cause all that trauma, right? And so what he suggested, which I went with, is he said, I would suggest a partial capsulectomy, and then end block was completely removed from the language because he's like, that's not even a thing. There's a term that they're using that's not real. Don't use it. So I got a partial capsulectomy, and then I ended up just having explanting, getting the implants completely taken out, and then I did I think it's called a partial mastopexy, so a breast lift, but there was some tweak to it. And he's like top-notch surgeon and he does all of these things all of the time. So he did like a lift with a slight variation to it. But again, I did not have the entire capsule removed. I did not do end block anything because that's not a real term in explant surgery that he acknowledges. That's a cancer term. And then I had a breast lift. So I can talk more about the actual type of breast lift. Maybe I'll do that in a different episode and kind of talking about that. Actually, no, I'll talk about it right now and then I'll wrap up. So with the explant surgery, I want to talk about what healing was like from that, what the appointments were like for that and all of that jazz. So I went to Dr. Hutter for, I saw him like a year ago, right after my brother died. And I was like, okay, I should just get this done right away, blah, blah, blah. But surgery takes like, the scheduling for it was really far out. And I just kept pushing it and pushing and pushing. And then I was like, well, it's been a whole year and I haven't done anything. So I went in and I was like, can we, do this sooner rather than later? And he was so awesome about it. And one of the things, okay, this is rounding back to the old implants that I had. One of the things that Dr. Hutter figured out was that my original implants were put in backwards. So there's like a plug on an implant, like an actual, so it's like a big round circle and there's a plug from when they fill it. And my old doctor had put it in backwards. So I had this plug behind my nipple instead of on the inside near my rib cage. I had this plug on both of my implants directly behind my nipples and it hurt, number one, and it made my nipples stick out farther than they should, number two. And it sucked. It was so dumb. And I remember thinking when I had my implants in, I was like, I feel like I can feel that like plug thing, but I don't know. I guess that's how they're supposed to be. Like I didn't question it at all. He didn't bring it up. The other surgeon never talked about it. Nobody talked about it. But my implants were literally put in backwards. And Dr. Hutter was like, I can't even believe. He's like, well, I won't be stoned when I do your surgery, so you won't have backward. He's like, I think I'll do better than your other guy. And so that was a really surprising discovery to realize that for my entire time with my implants, they were backwards. And that sucked to find out. It felt, it just feels crappy. It's not like a big deal, but it just felt bad. So then we scheduled the surgery for the explant. But one of the things I really loved about Dr. Hutter was he was like, not all implants are terrible. And I want to say this too, because my implants didn't bother me until they were ruptured. I didn't have a problem. I didn't have sluggishness. I didn't have the weight in my legs or the tingling feeling or the like tiredness. I didn't have any of that until my implant ruptured. And so he was like, you can get implants again, but yeah, you'll have to get them replaced in 10 years from now. And that's a choice you want to make, and that's a financial investment, blah, 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 like all of those things. So he was really cool about like, if you got a breast lift and an explant, he's like, you'll be really small chested, which is no shock to me. I am that way anyway. So I was like, I would rather be small chested than feel like I'm sitting on water balloons all the time, because I really didn't like that feeling. But he was really cool about it. He didn't push me one way, didn't shame me, didn't do any of that stuff. I just really liked his vibe, but basically wanted me to know, like, in the end, this is how you're going to look. Like, your breasts are going to be significantly smaller than they were before, and they're going to be like, you'll be pretty flat. Are you okay with that? I said, yes, I'm okay with that. And so the surgery itself was, I think, around 3.5 hours long, which I think if you do like the full capsulectomy, it adds a ton of time. Because I think like Mel Robbins had a full explant with a full capsulectomy, she had gummy bear implants that were recalled, and her surgery was like 5+ hours. So I think that the capsulectomy part really adds a lot of time. I'm just sharing that as a side note. But so the surgery day itself was really, really smooth. I do have to tell one funny story. The lady put my IV in the wrong spot, and I kind of knew it, but I didn't catch it. And I was like really tired. So I was just sitting there, and my freaking arm swelled up. She filled my arm with IV fluid, and I actually got up out of my chair and was like, hey, I think you need to change this and put it in a different spot. Because number one, the saline is not going into my body. And number two, if you put any medication into that IV bag, it will not go into me. So they ended up having to put it in a different side, which is no big deal. I don't get bothered by stuff like that. But so went in, had the surgery, in and out really quick. This is the first surgery that I ever had that I didn't throw up like within a few hours after, which I was really proud of myself. So I was super, super tired. So the medicine that they used to put you, just the anesthetics, made me just like super, super, super tired. They always do. So I was, you feel like kind of queasy the first day after surgery. You're just massively tired. But Dr. Hutter uses these, like, they're blocker things. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like an anesthesia thing where they're like pain blockers that are injected into you. They have a name. I don't know it. And so I think that helps a lot with like the first few days of pain. Also, though, I'm a redhead, and redheads burn through painkillers and every like anesthesia like crazy. So I think mine went away like the first day, because I remember notably feeling way more in pain within like the next day, which I was a little bit surprised by, because he said it would last a few days, but this is just me guessing things. So, but he prescribed you, they prescribe you like the hydrocodone or whatever it is. I have no idea. And I didn't take one. I threw them away because I don't like taking opioids or any of that kind of stuff, any of that high kind of pain medicine I don't take. So this entire time I've managed my pain with Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol. And then actually with another cool thing that my friend made for me, it is called Cottonwood Bud Salve or Bud Balm. And it's a painkiller, and it's made of cottonwood buds. It's crazy and works really well. So the surgery, again, the healing, I'm on day 9. So there's obviously, I still can't do a lot, but the healing process has been relatively quick. But let me give you the caveat that's so dumb. It's so stupid. My kids, while I was in surgery, I think it was tough. he got a call. My mom got a call, or Seth, somebody. Tough came home sick. So literally I have been sick my entire time healing from my surgery. I have had a stupidly bad sore throat. As you can tell, I sound a little scraggly. And that has sucked so much. Like my sore throat has been more of a problem, like in the pain department than just healing, which I know sounds silly and might sound over exaggerated, but it isn't. Cause like when you're a few days after surgery, there are certain things you can't do. Like you can't move certain ways cause your scars, like all of that stuff. But beyond that, it was like my freaking sore throat is really what's making me so mad over here. I will say the first couple of days and now even, you have to do what they call like T-Rex arms. Your arms are like you can't really put them forward because you can't use the like pectoral muscles. You want all of that stuff to stay as compressed and calm as possible, like all in one spot, pushed together. So right now I'm wearing like a sports bra that I actually made out of a regular bra because I'm lazy and I didn't want to go to the store. So I made a sports bra that like Velcros down the front, and then I wrap a compression bandage on all of that. And that's worked really, really well. But again, you have limited arm movement for the first couple of days. You're always supposed to have someone with you for 24 hours. And then because it's spring break for my kids, I've had kids home. So they've been able to like get water for me or help me reach something up high. But the healing is really like on par for other surgeries. I've had a lot of different surgeries, not like implant stuff, like other, weird splenectomies and what's the other one I had? My appendix out. And so I know how to heal from surgery, but so it's pretty normal for that stuff. And I'm super impressed with his incisions and all of the stuff. Like it's just gone really well and I'm excited about it. But the other question or the other thing I wanted to share too is like, what is it like going from these big implants to like being, I'm not like totally flat chested, but what is it like going from having that big change? And for me, it's a little bit of it's tricky because I had deflated boobs for so long, that change wasn't that big. Oh, I didn't even tell you this. So I had the one deflated on the left side, right? And then I went into Dr. Hutter and he actually deflated the right side because your body, when you deflate an implant, you can actually heal a little bit more, like your body's trying to go back to normal. So the implant will like draw up. It's super fascinating and super weird, but literally like sitting in the office, he numbs the side of your breasts and then puts in a big long needle and draws out the liquid from the saline inside of the implant. And he removed a lot on the first time he did it. And he was like, oh yeah, the rest will just leak out over time. But you guys, it didn't. So I visited him like months later and he's like, why is this still full of fluid? And I'm like, I don't even know. And I would even push on it to try to get the saline to come out and it would not work. And so he had to do it again. So it was crazy. But all that to say, I did not have that stark, like one day I had D cups and then the next day I had A cups. I didn't have that. So I can't speak to it because I had like my left boob was deflated for a long time. And then when he took the saline out of my right boob, it was like deformed. So I'm just, again, being really transparent with you. It was super weird because it's like attached inside with all these weird ways and it like was hanging all weird, but it like pulled out. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm certainly not sharing any photos of it because I didn't take any because it was gross. So that was weird. But apart from, so I can't really speak on like a big, stunning, crazy difference. But I can say that the job that he did with the lift is beautiful. And I just feel so natural now. I know that sounds silly because obviously it's not natural to have your boobs like sliced up and rearranged. But what he did is the kind where he cuts like again, TMI, if you're queasy, don't listen, but you cut out my implants were put in under my breast. So like a line directly under the crease of your breast is where they put my original implants in. So they cut them out from that same incision. And then he does a slice up the center, like from the fold of your breast up to your nipple. And then he actually does a slice around your nipple. So he just like tucked in everything, pulled it tight underneath. And then that's what lifts your breasts, right? So again, I think it's called like a partial mastoplexy, something like that. But it's just like a breast lift, a certain kind of breast lift. But so far they just look so beautiful, like natural. They're soft like a regular boob is supposed to be. It doesn't feel like I have a freaking, Ziploc bag with goldfish crackers or jangly, this going on inside. It feels so much better. And I'm also not super flat. So I don't feel like I look like a little boy or anything. But even then it's like, wear a padded bra if you want to have a bigger rack a time or two. I'm not worried about it. But even now I can already, I can move my shoulders so much more. Like I feel so much more open. I can move my body in ways that I could, and I'm not even healed, you guys. I'm 9 days post-surgery. I can tuck my knees up. I think my women's group coaching ladies see me do that all the time on my calls. I'll put my knees up against my chest. And I love that I can do that now. I was so disappointed for years that I couldn't do that. And even foldovers when you do yoga, where you're even if you're sitting on your knees kind of, and you put your butt on the floor and you just fold over your own body. Now I can do that. And it doesn't feel gross and weird. Like there's a, water balloon in my chest. So that's so amazing. And so far I really, really love them. I had an appointment today. I had my first set of bandages removed. They put on a new set. I have to take that off in a week. So text me if I forget. But I mean, so far it just looks amazing. They did again, lots of information. Be careful if you're queasy. They did all dissolvable stitches and then they glued everything shut on top of that. So today I had, like I said, the first layer of bandages removed, or the bandages removed. She cut the tails to my stitches, which I didn't enjoy. I told her it hurt my feelings. I didn't like that. But she did it. And then she put new bandages on that I'll have on for a week. And then just keep on keeping an eye on it. But it's really good. I've had almost no bruising at all, which I'm like, is it going to come later? Because I had one tiny bruise up high, which I was surprised about. And then bruises near my drains. Oh, I want to talk about my drains. Oh my gosh, this is so much longer than I thought it was going to be. So I had drains. I had to have drains. And they do that because fluid will build up in your body. And if you leave it there, it can cause complications. So they do drains. Now, I had a drain. I had an abdominal drain when I had my appendectomy, when I had my appendix out. But my abdominal drain, I think they normally don't do them, but I have that scar from when I had my spleen taken out. Oh my gosh, this sounds ridiculous. So my abdomen is all fused together because I had a really traumatic surgery when I was 10. So I had an abdominal drain when I had my appendix removed. And when they took that thing out, I swear I thought I was going to pass out. It was so painful. So I was thinking that my drains from my explant were going to be like that. And I was so nervous about getting these freaking drains out. And I just didn't want to have them. I was so nervous about getting them out. But let me tell you about it. So they're kind of in your armpits. They're a few inches down from your armpits. So they're way off to the side, and they clip them to your ace bandage wrapped body right after surgery. And they are these little bulbs that you squeeze them and then they pull the fluid out of your body, right? So sometimes there'll be little blood chunks in there or skin. It's kind of weird. It's kind of gross, but whatever. Again, I don't get weirded out by that stuff. So you have to drain them, you have to measure them, and then you tell them what they had, right? So I was so lucky. I'm so lucky and I'm so thankful. And I'm just keep on praying for continuous healing because I don't want this to happen. But I only had to have my drains for 2 days. 2 days. That's crazy. I've never heard of such a short time. I've been watching every breast implant illness explant video you can find. And some people had them for 14 days. I can't imagine. That sounds so awful to me. They're a nuisance. They're scary. They're awkward. They make you look really weird because they're under your clothes and your clothes feel weird and you're all hunched over. So they're just everything about them kind of isn't fun. But I only had mine for 2 days and they were they only collected, I think, a total of maybe even less than 25 milligrams of fluid or whatever the measurement is. So I was so happy. And then when I got them out, the lady who took them out I just think she must be a very excellent nurse because she's got a very light hand, but works very efficiently. And it just felt weird to get them out. And it was a little bit bloodier than I thought it was going to be. But it was easy. It took 2 seconds and she took them out, put a Band-Aid on each spot. So said, change those Band-Aids every day. And that was it. And I was floored. And I was so thankful because I really had a lot of anxiety because I was worried that they would hurt as bad as my abdominal drain. And she's like, oh, no. Abdominal drains are going through muscle. There's so much other stuff going on. You're good. You're golden. And so I was really, really thankful. But I hadn't heard many people talk about their experience with their drains like that. So I'm just sharing because I'm creating the resource that I wish I had had. So all that being said, I am very happy with who I chose to go to. Again, it's Dr. Hutter. He has a Maple Valley clinic and a Renton clinic. He's great. He's a specialist in reconstructive surgery, and also just a plastic surgeon in general. Just really cool guy, super, super informative, very, very loving and kind, and all the things that you would want. And I just really, really appreciated how much he wanted to educate. Again, he's an educator, he's a teacher. So he would like tell you all the things. If you did this, it'll look like this. If you do that, it's going to do that. If you do this, it might do this in 10 years. So it was just so cool. So I am really, really happy with my choice. Now, I do not regret having implants. I regret that one ruptured. Like that's super regrettable, but I had nothing to do with it. Or I don't know, maybe my Pilates popped it. But so here's the cool part. Seth and I are going to do, like we've mentioned, we're doing several episodes about this because we keep getting questions about it. And I just want to answer them all in one spot. So if you haven't sent in your questions about, or like your questions for us about the implants, the explant journey, what it was like, do I wish would I get them again? Would I, whatever, like, send your questions in so we can answer them on the show, because that's the whole goal here. We don't want you to have to go find them somewhere weird. It's hard to find this stuff without stumbling upon something that you did not want to stumble upon. So we wanted to make that resource available to you. So send in your questions to hello@anatomyofmarriage.com or anatomyofus.com. I don't even know. Or you can send them on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but just send in your questions. Any question that you have, or even share your stories about implants and explants and your journey and what you loved and what you hated and all of your thoughts. So anyway, I hope that this is helpful. If it is, please share this show with people. Please, please, please share the show. You get it for free. Go give it to somebody. All right. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye. Peace. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to Anatomy of Us. This podcast is produced by my mom, Melanie Studley, and hosted by my dad, Seth Studley. Our show is edited and published by our producer, Reva Hansen, from Creative Media Support. Special thanks to our Patreon members that get an extra episode every week. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.